Floor 2, completed. Level 7, achieved. A session with no death, mission accomplished. So there were lots of things to be happy about in the latest session. Was it perfect? No, it was very far from being perfect, especially on the back of 2 of the best sessions of D&D I've ever played. But now that I look back on it, I think mainly that was an issue with how the floor was written in the book, and I don't think it was a failing with the DM or anything about how the session was run. So rather than do a kind of play-by-play of everything, I think it's maybe best if I just kind of pull out a second just to kind of give the overall way that things kind of stood at the start of this week's session. So basically on the second floor of this dungeon that we're going through, there were 3 main forces at play. 2 of these belong to the Xanthar's Guild. We've got Nadia the Unbent and we've got Shun. And the other force is the Drow, who are trying to make gains on this floor. And the way that we did things, if you recall, last session, we actually ended up facing the Drow first, and we kind of made a very loose deal with them that we would, we'll take care of the Xanthar's Guild, and then you, in exchange, will give us a token and a key, which would help us on the next floor. We then headed south with the intention of not going through with that deal and just getting out of Dodge. We managed to win over the trust of Nadia the Unbent, and we made her aware of the fact that there are drow on this floor, and it was all kind of set up for this kind of turf war between these 2 rival factions. However, the DM made it very clear to us at that point that if we did leave the floor at that moment, we would not level up, as the situation, he said, was still unresolved. And because, it was about 10 minutes before the end of the session at the time, last week, we basically just said, all right, fine, we'll just make a quick decision here. In retrospect, probably the wrong decision. I think we should have just gone through with the turf warfare. That would have been brilliant. But in the end, we just said, let's make a quick decision. We've got 10 minutes until we're kicked out of this pub. So we'll just kill Nadia, chop off her head, and we'll give it to the drow in exchange for the token. Now, unfortunately for us, neither the drow nor the DM were satisfied with this conclusion. And basically, we had to face Shun as well during this session. So here's kind of where the issues started. Because of those 3 main forces on this floor, Shun, which is the person we've left until last, is probably the most heavily guarded of any of those other forces. There were like 10 to 15 bugbears with her. She herself is this hideous spider monstrosity, and there's also this giant gelatinous cube hanging out in her area, which is literally the size of a house. So my character got killed by a bugbear just a couple of sessions ago, and so far literally every single bugbear that we've encountered in this campaign has actually been an intellect devourer in disguise. So Gorn's instinct at this point would be just to kind of stay as far away from these people as possible. We've already lost, believe it or not, 7 characters so far in this campaign in combat situations. 7. The lesson here being, look, if we value our characters' lives, we should avoid combat if at all possible. Instead, our plan so far has basically been to try and play each faction off against the other. And so as soon as we were told what we've got to face Shun, our idea was basically the same. We'd say, well, look, we'll do the same thing with Shun that we did with Nadia. Great idea. If we can get an audience with Shun by convincing her that we're members of the Xanthar Guild, we can then tell Shun that her cousin has arrived on this floor, and that's true. The drow are making gains. They want to destroy the Xanthar's Guild. That's true also. And he's already managed to get rid of Nadia the Unbent. That's also true, albeit the fact that we were the ones that actually did the getting rid of. But, those are true situations. And if Shun is halfway intelligent, then she would then utilize that situation to, just like with Nadia, go on the offensive against the drow. And that would give us the perfect opportunity to kind of slip in, get the key and the token, and then get out ourselves. And also, let's remember the fact that previously, when there were 3 factions on this floor, Well, no one faction could really make a move against the other because they were kind of pinned down in two directions. If they started attacking one way, then that would leave them defenseless the other way. Well, we've now taken care of Nadia, so there is absolutely nothing stopping the Drow and Shun from having a good old fisticuffs with each other. So that was kind of our plan. The two of them, it turned out, were cousins anyway, so they have history. There should be a lot of aggression there. So, hey, it's a plan, right? But unfortunately for us, it was a plan that did not execute at all well. Shun had guards on duty, bugbear guards on duty, and they wanted to know a password. They said, "What's the password?" And I'm like, I don't know, just like, I don't have time for this. I've got to deliver this important message to Shun. You know, this floor is under attack from foreign agents that are trying to destroy the Xanathar's Guild. You've got to let me through. They're like, "What's the password?" It's like, I don't have time for this. This was kind of an altercation for a little while there. And this is a password, I should probably point out, that the DM insisted that we actually had in our possession. Apparently he'd given it to us a couple of sessions ago, and it's a password which I, in my infinite wisdom, had not written down. So I'm frantically going through my notes. In the meantime, I'm just bluffing. They're trying to help me out a little bit. They say, "How many eyes does Xanthar have?" And I'm like, 8, maybe? I don't know. Like, do I even know he's a beholder? Roll like nature check. Yes, I know he's a beholder. Okay, right. Yeah, 8 or 9, I think. Like, I don't have time for this. So anyway, long story short, the correct password should have been as many as there are stars in the sky. We did not give that, and so they attack. And so I'm fighting back, but all the way through, you know, deliberately, we don't want to look like we're an invading hostile force. The whole point is that we came here trying to act like friends. So I'm constantly shouting every time I get a turn, "We want to speak with Shun." I'm giving them some information as, like, you know, breadcrumbs, but not everything. But it's not working. During the course of the fight, Kronos, our Goliath barbarian, he's knocked unconscious, he's dragged away, and we take down one of the bugbears, but then the combat is over. And at this point, Bolene and I are unsure what to do. Kronos, off stage, he's been dragged to the side. He actually rolls all of his death saves successfully, which is, I think, a first for this campaign. So he stabilizes, but we don't know this. So we're just standing in the middle of this corridor, post-fighting, and our options are, well, we can run away, but then we're basically sacrificing Kronos. He's basically gone. We've also then lost our one chance to deliver this message to Shun. If we run away, we look like we were the aggressors after all, right? We don't want to look that way. So we don't want to run away because it makes us look, you know, like we're not who we say we are when we're not who we say we are. We also then don't get the token, we don't get the key, and we don't level up. So that's off the table. But then the other alternative is now, clearly this group doesn't trust us. We don't have a password. They don't like us here. So our other option is to continue fighting. But that's not an option either, because there's only 2 of us. There are way too many enemies for us to fight here. And again, it would make us look like the bad guys, ruining any chance that we have of bluffing our way past Shun. So instead, we kind of just stood there in the corridor, basically for what felt like half of the session. We were just at this complete crossroads, literally. I mean, it's literally a crossroads, but we were at this like impasse. We short rested. All the while, I'm kind of shouting out, look, we're here to speak with Shun. We mean no harm. It's a difficult moment. And luckily, I'm looking through my notes frantically. The DM can kind of tell that we're a bit frustrated in this moment. He's trying to like throw us a bone and help us out, but he's not the sort of DM who would just suddenly be like, "Oh, turns out there was only 3 bugbears here after all." No, he said that there were 15, so we just got to deal with that number now, right? So I'm frantically going through my notes. I'm looking for this password, which the DM insists that he gave us. I can't find it, but But I do find this rumour that I managed to get all the way back in the first session. The rumour is that one of Halaster's apprentices, Mural, I think it's Mural, apparently the drow are terrified of her, and so I just shout out, Mural, that's the message that we're here to deliver. Mural is on this floor. She's hunting us down. She's already taken out Nadia the Unbent. We've got to stop her. I'm here to help get help. And it works. Yeah, it turns out that Shun here is terrified of Mural, and just like that, she believes us. Without the password, she's our friend, and we tell her she should send her guards away to bolster the defenses. She does that. And I'll be honest, this section of things, because we finally cracked the back of this problem, we finally solved it. We're finally we got this in with her. To the point where then the next 10 minutes just went poof like this, and somehow at the end of it, we ended up, I think we've sent away all of her guards, and basically the DM just speedruns it and lets us have it and says, fine, well then you managed to cut off her head. Great, okay, we've got it now. So then we take that head, we take it back to the drow, and we get the token, we get the stone key, we then proceed to the next floor, and we level up. Now, there was a bunch of other stuff that happened in the session too. We went through a dwarven temple at one point. We encountered this Modron, who was brilliant. Highlight of the entire session right there. But let's leave it there for now, because I don't want to do a play-by-play. I think the main takeaway from the session for all of us was that impasse that we found ourselves in for a good 2/3 of that session. So I would say it was a successful session, because mission accomplished, we managed to achieve our goals, we've leveled up, we've gone to the next floor, none of us died. Wonderful. But it was frustrating for a number of reasons, and I think, as I said at the beginning, the problem seems to be with the book. I think it's clear in retrospect that despite the fact that this is a sprawling maze and you can go any one of millions of directions and get lost along the way, there is definitely a correct route, or an optimal route, I should say, through this floor. And we basically went the complete opposite direction to that optimal route. Because had we gone to the crossroads first, had we then encountered Shun first, Shun would have likely captured us. She's got the biggest force by far. She would have then given us the ultimatum and said, my cousin has come onto this floor, the drow. We want to get rid of him. Her cousin has the weakest force on the floor by far. We could have taken him. We would have then, he had something like 44 hit points and he's a wizard, so he's quite squishy. We would have then been able to get the stone key and the token that way. Of the 3 forces in the area, the drow are by far the weakest, and unfortunately for us, it also so happened that the drow was the party that we first encountered of these 3, and so that was the one that we ended up doing a deal with. And the result of all of this is that we kind of, well, I can't speak for the others, but certainly I ended up feeling far more murder hobo-y than I really would like, that I feel comfortable with. I mean, I know that we've been playing quite chaotic the last couple of sessions, but there's a very big difference between being chaotic neutral, which is what Gorn is, and chaotic evil, which is what I think we kind of stepped into the territory of during this session. You know, we killed a lot of people under false pretenses, and I don't particularly feel good about that. Yeah, like I say, I think in retrospect I would have rather just gone through with the turf war, because then at least it's honest. Like, you're killing people, but it's out in the open. You're not like pretending to be someone's friend and then hacking off their head. That's very grim dark, you know? So, yeah, and also this is coupled with the fact that I've got Gorn's backstory written up fully now, and I know that he, just on principle, utterly hates organisations of any kind. By organizations, I basically mean like a bunch of strangers getting together, wearing the same clothes, having the same symbols on them, having the same like handshakes and things, and basically wasting the finite years of their mortal lives following someone else's agenda to achieve somebody else's goals, and just content with being a cog in the machine that someone else has created. That goes against everything that Gorn believes in. And so doing deals with these kinds of people, whether they be the Xanthar's Guild, whether they be Drow, whether they even be like the Harpers or the Order of the Gauntlet, or any of the good guilds out there, I don't think he's a big fan of any of them. So, you know, ultimately he reveres and respects the dead. He doesn't want to actively add more to that pile. And so I think the way he would have wanted to do things is the way we originally did it. The pacifist run, don't make any deals, just pretend to be friends, sneak past everything, just get to the next area, because there is a specific group of people that Gorn is looking for in this place, and these chumps, they ain't it. But unfortunately the DM was very clear that if we behave in that way, we won't hit the required milestone point, and therefore we won't level up. Which is probably what the book says, but it forces you then to act in a way that I don't think we otherwise would have, and it removes that player agency to be able to just play the game the way you want to. You know, of the people in the party, I'm looking for someone. Our Goliath Barbarian, he's looking for someone. These people are not with the Xanthar's Guild, they're not with the Drow. So there we go. And it's not helped by the fact that, unfortunately, the other person in our party, Bolene, the player that's playing Bolene, he's already read this book before, he's read this module, and I know he's deliberately trying not to metagame, and it's very laudable of him, and I've got to say he's doing a fantastic job of not metagaming and not revealing his knowledge. But the upshot of this is that more often than not, his character tends to stay quiet a lot of the time instead of chiming in with suggestions, because I know that he doesn't want to risk tipping his hand about the knowledge that he has by saying the right answer or the right solution to a puzzle. Anytime he does chip in with a suggestion, I'm now basically taking that as like, oh, well, that's clearly not the solution, because if it were the solution, you wouldn't tell us, because you'd feel that that was metagaming. You know? So then we're just left with me. I have no idea what we should be doing. And Kronos, who, if you remember, just interacts with literally everything with no caution whatsoever. That's just how he plays. Nothing against the guy. It doesn't matter what the character he's playing, doesn't matter what the race is he's playing, that's just how he, as a player, plays D&D. He wants fun things to happen, and fun things tend to happen when you push the button or open the chest or poke the bear, whatever. He can just roll up another character if things go wrong. Me personally, I inhabit my character much more, and so I'm a lot more cautious because I don't want to die, and therefore my character doesn't either. So there we go. So a bit of a tangent there, but the ultimate point is it was a very frustrating session for a number of reasons, and it felt like the first time in this whole campaign that the book, the party, and the DM were all kind of at odds with one another and pulling in different directions. The book clearly had an optimal route, but did a terrible job of signposting what that should have been, and was locking level up points behind arbitrary milestone points, which removed player agency. The DM wanted us to pick a side and settle a conflict, and the party just wanted to get to the next floor without any more of us dying. There's only 3 of us in this party. It's a very small group. This book is clearly balanced around larger groups of 4 or 5 or even 6, and that tension unfortunately leads to frustrations for everyone. And the other point I would raise is that we don't have any magic casters or healers in our party at the moment. We had a few magic casters, but they all died because they're very squishy or they ran away. And so since then we've kind of been playing with big tough guys. But I can safely say, having just been through that floor, I can say with certainty that a spell like Detect Magic is basically essential for this campaign. So that's advice for anyone that wants to run this book. Tell your party in session 0, you need someone in your party, at least one person that knows Detect Magic. It is an essential spell. I cannot tell you the number of times on that floor that we would have easily got through situations, or much more, we wouldn't have died or stumbled into bad situations had we been able to identify what it is that we're looking at, right? Well, luckily, we've all leveled up now. I have now taken a level in Druid, so I now know Detect Magic, and I can ritual cast it, and I know Healing Word as well. And those 2 spells alone, I think, are going to be game-changing. Healing Word, we all know it's an insanely busted spell in 5e, and it should single-handedly ensure that none of us are ever forced to roll all of our death saves ever again. So anyway, that's everything there. Second floor done. I would say on reflection, not as good as the first floor, but doesn't matter. We're on a 3rd floor now. New floor, new level, fresh slate, and we've got a map of this floor already. We already know that there's Skullport coming up. We've heard very good things about that. We have our token from the drow. We have the stone key. We have the password and the patch of the Xanthar's Guild. If we want to continue this pacifist run, I think we now have the tools to do that, which is good. And I think with luck, next week will actually be the first time in a couple of months that we will have 4 players at the table. So I'm hoping that will see a nice return to form and we'll be back on track. So until then, take care.